Art is not what you see, but what you make others see. Edgar Degas. What is art? If you ask anyone, surely they would have a different answer. Essentially, forms of art are creative activities. They are a display of an individual's emotions and imagination. There are many branches of art: literature, music, dance, and painting. This video will focus more towards visual arts, art movements, techniques, elements, and more. What is art? Within visual arts are its different branches. The main three are fine, contemporary, and decorative arts. Fine art is a form of art where the product does not necessarily have a purpose, but is rich with aesthetic and meant to convey a message, emotion, or an idea. A fine art product is considered fine art if it's a painting, sculpture, or architecture. A few examples of fine arts artists are Pablo Picasso, Jim Dine, and Paul Jenkins. Pablo Picasso had a blue period in which he painted many of his paintings in blue. The color, along with the subject of the message, was compelling because of how much expressive it was. Jim Dine used multiple colors and a distinctive drawing and painting technique which helped convey his message. As for Paul Jenkins, he used color and movement to convey different feelings, whether it be liberty, conflict, or others, depending on an individual's perception. Which goes to my next point. How? Notice how I didn't specify exactly what emotion a specific painting by an artist is meant to convey? That's because art is about people's perception of an artwork, which connects with my introduction quote. As for contemporary art, they use more modern components, which include photography, collage, assemblage, conceptual art, and more. A few examples are Yayoi Kusama, known for her use of polka dots in her art, Romare Bearden, known for his collage works, and Daniel Spoeri, known for his assemblage art. Decorative arts, like fine art, are products made for aesthetic, but instead it also provides a purpose. Therefore, it is both functional and aesthetic. Examples are interior design, furniture, pottery, carpets, and more. There isn't necessarily a true starting point of art and where it began, as humans are arguably naturally artistic in their own way. But a way to understand the history of art is to learn about the different art movements. Here are a few of the fundamentally important art movements throughout our existence. Firstly is the Italian Renaissance, which occurred from the 14th to the 17th century. During this era, there were many humanist portrait paintings, realistic sculptures, and symmetrical architecture. Following this was the Realism era, which began in 1848. Realism paintings focused on daily life and people. After was Impressionism, which began in roughly 1860s. It's an era that developed from the previous era, Realism, in which artists would, instead of copy, would depict an object or view in their paintings. The post-Impressionism era, which developed from 1886 and ended in 1905, was where artists responded against the requirement for the naturalistic delineations of light and shading in Impressionist art. Then, Cubism, which developed in the early 20th century, was an era where, like the name, artists would use geometric shapes to create their final product. Surrealism, which began in the 1920s, was an imaginative depiction prodded by an artist's subconscious. Afterwards is pop art, which emerged in the US and England. This art movement accentuated on the components of common goods in pop culture. Pop art also included brightly colored artworks. Following this was installation art, which was an art movement that gives artists access to create three-dimensional constructions and create a new environment. Each artwork has different principles and elements to them, that is, line, shape, color, value, form, texture, and space. Acknowledging each of these elements is very important, as different elements combined together can convey a message completely different from another combination. Firstly, the line. What utensil will you be using? A pencil or brush? Or what others can you use? Secondly, the shape. Will you be using curves and circular shapes or rectangular shapes? Thirdly, the color. Will this color convey the right emotion? Fourth, value. Should it be light or dark? How do different values convey different messages? Fifth, form. Should this object be two-dimensional or three-dimensional? Sixth, what is the texture? Is it appropriate for it to be smooth or rough? How does the texture help me convey my emotion? And lastly, space. How closely together should two objects be? Is the perspective realistic? Should it not be? Now with this knowledge, pick your favorite art style and make your own artwork. In art, there is no ugly or beautiful. Art is about the visual emotion and message that you convey and people perceive. There is not a spectrum in which you apply your artwork to show how successful it will be. Art is not always about pretty things. It is about who we are, what happened to us, and how our lives are affected. Elizabeth Brown.